So this is the portion of the hearing in which we get comments from the public. Now, let's say this before we get started. If you want to make a comment, please raise your hand and get a card from my outstanding team. We have comment cards. We'll read off a few comments from Jim, who's monitoring it online. For the communities out there in the public, this is not the only time you can provide comment. You can provide an email or a comment or go to the website anytime, 24 hours a day. You don't have to just catch it now, but for those who do, feel free to make that comment. So here's the rules of engagement I would ask. To be fair to everybody, so that we let all the speakers speak and be able to hear some comments from online. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes, and I will give you a general warning at 30 seconds, and I would ask you to then wind down your thoughts, if you will, and we appreciate that very much. And so what I will go is a 2-1, if you will. I would go with the first 2 speakers and then turn to Jim to go to comments online. So the first speaker will be Iris, I want to say Rowley, hopefully I pronounced it wrong, and Rowley, thank you very much. And following Ms. Rowley will be Danny Brown, but let's start with Ms. Rowley, and thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you for being here. Thank you for weathering this long conversation, well overdue conversation. It is Iris Rowley, and I am from Cincinnati, Ohio, so I welcome you once again, and thank you for being here all day listening. Great panels, great conversation. One of the things that I wanted to offer, you heard the president of the FOP, Kathy Harrell, you heard Christina Brown talk about the police in city of Cincinnati. That work was extremely hard and is still continuing hard. We rolled into federal court with a 30-year study of policing in the black community. And so nothing's gonna change and happen fast. So we were asking Cincinnati for 30 years to fix it in the black community. So I would encourage the panel to incorporate that type of language and recommendations that give it time to be fixed. Also, I would encourage the task force to look at how community-based organizations can be compensated for their time. It's been 14 years for me when I started this, when we sued the city and the police for racial profiling. My youngest son was 7, he is now 21. We've done all of this work out of our pocket because we care, and we care about our children and our children's children. And so community is often left out. Community doesn't have a budget. Police have a budget, city has a budget, community doesn't. So I would encourage the task force to consider some type of mechanism where community people who take this thing seriously, who want a return on their investment by way of their taxes, to be compensated so they can stay in the room, stay at the table, and continue to make policing fair and equitable for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Danny Brown.
Danny Brown. This is a recent article about me from the Toledo Blade, printed January the 7th, 3-part series, written by Keith Burris. And I'm gonna give it to the panel so they can read. I'm gonna introduce this as my testimony. But I wanna say I did 19 years in prison for murder I didn't commit, and I'm still fighting. I've been out since 2001. When I got out in 2001, they were having riots right up here in Cincinnati for that last police shoot. I'm still fighting with the local prosecutor who's calling me a suspect after DNA showed another man did it. I had 13 witnesses at my trial. No physical evidence linked me to the crime, and I was convicted on the testimony of a 6-year-old child. She's saying she believed this 6-year-old child over me and all my witnesses. The child is more believable than all us adults, in the face of no evidence, no nothing. My thing is, we having this discussion, you know, about police shootings. The prosecutor is the chief police officer in the county. You know, it's no accountability because prosecutors don't have to pay a price for the wrong that they do to you. The Supreme Court has ruled in Miller versus United States that a prosecutor can knowingly lie and get away with it on the color of law, as long as they do it while they're doing it at the trial. I mean, what kind of justice is that? Now, we talk about the riots that they had in Ferguson. Well, shoot, when this country was started on riots, when they felt they wasn't getting justice, you cannot keep treating people the same way. The Black Panthers got started because they felt they were being abused by police officers. That's how they got started. It wasn't a racial organization. They wanted to monitor police conduct What scared society was they carried shotguns. It was legal. And they called the police pigs, and they ain't like it. But they actually got started because they were tired of being abused. This was in the 60s. We 2015, and we still have the same conduct going on today. People are scared to address the issue. You know, it's gonna take some bravery, and it's gonna take a lot of work. Because how can you say, I committed a crime when DNA showing somebody else did? It's like, you can say anything to me because you don't believe I'm a human being. You don't respect me. You know, that's what I see in this society right now. I see it like when the mayor of New York go to a funeral for 2 police officers, and the police turn their back on and say he got blood on his hand, when it was them. It was their conduct that agitated that man. And I feel like that type of disrespect towards the mayor of New York is an indication of the psychology we dealing with. It's about the thinking of the people.
30 seconds, Mr. Brown. Thank
Right, it's about the thinking. You have to deal with your hiring practice, who you putting in them uniforms, because a badge is a powerful thing. And sometimes it's like money. It play tricks with people's mind. They think they God. And that's the truth, you know. And you need to have more people like me in here talking about this issue. I don't see people who have my experience sharing this with you. You know, you cannot separate the courts from the police. Simple as that.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Don't forget to hand Malenka, Mr. Brown. She's right behind you. Thank you. Appreciate that very much. And I'm going to turn to Jim for the online comments.
We have an email from Michael who says many of the task force members and witnesses have made some statements about police accountability, statistics, civilian oversight, and training being central to the goals of future recommendations of policies for police reform. In any tenuous situation, compromise is normal to bring parties together, and the goal of this task force is to do this with the public and policing. With that said, there should be suggestions of policy focused on educating the lay public about police confrontations and how to deal with them constructively.
Thank you. So next up in the audience, I have Eric Ellis. Is Mr. Ellis here? And then following Mr. Ellis would be Stephen, and please forgive me, I don't know if this is G. Yang, I believe. And then we'll turn back to the online comment. So Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. I certainly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all, and thank you for the great work that you are doing. I'm a diversity consultant. I run a management consulting firm that's been around for 24 years. My father was a pioneer in the field of diversity. I work with major corporations, mainly like Toyota and Honda, but I'm also working with the City of Cincinnati Police Force. But what I wanted to share with you is that I think that it feels like we need to spend more time sort of rising above the details to really look at the structure of how we resolve conflicts within our country. My concern is that whenever we come together, we really are adversarial, and it seems like most of these things are people sort of talking more about their side, their point of view. So we see police sort of talking about their side and the community talking about their side, and nobody's really trying to say how do we improve the structure, the challenges that we face. One of the things that I looked at was that as we look at the police focus and the community focus, in many ways, the top 3 things are the same: safety, justice, and respect. But they're looking at it from their side. The police want themselves to be safe. They want justice. They want respect. The community looks at it the same way. The police focuses on trust and support. Community focuses on police reform. The police focuses on being independent. The community focuses on third-party oversight. Somebody has got to be able to look at that and say, how do we begin to respect each of them and their concerns in ways that will give them confidence that you can broker a relationship? And unless we're looking at that, we are never going to. A lot of what police are dealing with has to do with decision making. If we know all of us have biases, then those are going to be played out in the way that we do our work, no matter who we are, no matter what our race is. I think we can use tools before us to help us more. I was thinking about today implicit bias. You know, there's work that's been done around implicit bias. The Harvard group has done some work around that. And then I thought about the fax machine that's used, the simulator. And I've been thinking for a long time that residents could sort of go through the fax machine and then you'd get sensitized to what police have to look at. But what if we were to take implicit bias testing and tie that into the fax machine so that we would then understand police would get feedback themselves on their reaction time if the person in front of them is black, Hispanic, or of a different religion. And we wouldn't sort of throw them out of the process because of that, but we would help sensitize them to what they have internally so that they could more manage it.
Thank you, sir. Stephen Yang. Before I go to the line, Alexander Shelton. Jim.
Okay, we have a tweet that asks the task force should hold town hall meetings with communities to assess the needs and the requirements or behaviors of the communities and the needs that they have. Then we have an email message that says, "It breaks my heart to hear what is going on here today. We have laws in this country. It is illegal to block traffic. It is illegal to stream vile profanities in public where children are taking it all in. It is illegal to go around intimidating and threatening people, and our children and grandchildren are watching all this going on, and they wonder why we tell them to obey the law."
Thank you. Do we have a Lacey, forgive me, Brewster? And will be followed by, I believe, Michael Wright. Please.
Thank you for your time. My name is Lacey Jane Brewster. I'm a second-year law student at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. I would like to talk to you guys about something that I'm very concerned about, which is what I believe to be is the militarization of our police force. This semester that we just got through, while most of my fellow students were enjoying their reading period, I decided to do the most dumb thing I could ever do as a law student and follow a few of my fellow students to St. Louis, following the non-indictment and the demonstrations that occurred as a result of the non-indictment. And I had the opportunity, while I was in St. Louis and Ferguson, to observe just exactly what the modern-day police force looks like when they are responding to people who are exercising their First Amendment rights to address their grievances to the government in a legal way. I observed the police tell a woman that she could not cross the street. This woman happened to be black. She happened to be young, and she happened to be fierce. And she happened to have about 200 people standing behind her that weren't going to stand for the oppression from the police. And I watched as this young woman and I walked across the street after she courageously told the police that had already tear gassed her and locked her up once that she was going to exercise her right to cross the street. And you know what? She did. She crossed the street and the police moved. Maybe because it was day. Maybe it was because she had a white person standing next to her. I don't know why at that time things didn't go badly. But I am concerned by what I saw in Ferguson and St. Louis. I am concerned about the heavy artillery that I observed in St. Louis on the police and the National Guard. I came home, I was there for 2 days, and I couldn't sleep for a week because of what I saw, because of what I saw our government doing to our people.
30 seconds.
It was scary. And I'm not here to talk about white privilege or race. I'm just here to talk about the fact that what the government is doing to people makes them afraid to exercise the personal liberties that makes our country great. And this is a problem that needs to be addressed by our government. And so I hope that this task force takes their job very seriously, because if you don't, things are not going to get any better, and they're only going to get worse. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your efforts.
Thank you. Michael Wright. Before we go online, if Michael Wright's not here, I have a Hershel Daniels.
Yes, my name is Hershel Daniels. I'm chairman of Friends of the African Union, which was called by the State Department in 2012 here in Cincinnati to meet with the African Union. We've since progressed and are working currently with a peace and security initiative, but we had to turn our focus back to America because of what's happening. What we did is we put the United States in the Universal Periodic Review, which is the peer review of the human rights record of the United States. The President of the United States said the number 2 issue in America is criminal justice. He said the number 1 is racial discrimination. So what we did is we asked the President to exercise his authority to use quantitative easing. And we're doing that as part of My Brother's Keeper of Greater Cincinnati. Now, what we asked him to do, he can do without the will of Congress. Rather, it's already been the authority he already has. As you well know, many of you, last year he was issuing $85 billion a month and buying mortgages and debt through the Federal Reserve. What we're asking is that there be funding for a 7-point program. Basically fund civilian oversight via quantitative easing on a national basis as a best practice center. Also, as recommendations that were earlier recommended in the consent decree across, but we make a little bit of a change. Because we're at the United Nations, because we were accepted September 15th, because we'll be having 3 minutes in Geneva and responding to the State Department, which will issue a report on February 5th, we're asking that the United States enter into a consent decree on a global agreement based on treaties that are enforced through the State Department. Within that context, we use the Organization of American States as the basis for this request.
30 seconds.
So what we're asking you to do is to train civilian and oversight and take all these practices, quantify what the costs are for the best practices, and then have a plebiscite relative to that. We are organizing such a plebiscite in the African American community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'll turn to Jim, and I think I see another card coming my way, so Jim.
Okay. A Twitter message. We need a process-driven model, one that helps us with transparency, objectivity, and integrity, most critically involving officer-involved shooting investigations. And then we have an email message. Is the task force examining negative consequences being assessed in regards to the recommendation for the use of force? Will this delay police response? Will other people be injured or harmed? Will citizens suffer as a consequence of delaying use of force?
And then the next, and I believe it's like the last speaker for the audience, is Maria. Maria, please pronounce your last name for us. Thank you.
Santi. I'm a criminal justice minor, political science major here at the University of Cincinnati, and I have a suggestion, and I think that our police officers would be better officers if they were more educated, such as law enforcement agencies should only hire police officers with 4-year bachelor degrees, preferably criminal justice, and they should be older. Instead of taking them as a 19 and 20-year-old, I think that's really too young to be a law enforcement officer. Not enough life experience. I think they should be at least 26, 27, 28 years old to be a law enforcement officer. And I'm thinking that maybe it should be a federal law that it comes under, that all states should have these policies implemented for police officers. And I also think they should make a lot more money. Maybe, and I know this might sound strange, but I think they should make between $80,000 to $100,000 a year, no matter where they live. And there's some research that has shown that law enforcement officers that have more education and are older tend to be less disciplinarian problems. They tend to be better officers. So it's just my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll close out with 2 more from James.
We have two Twitter messages. There is a call to restore regional community policing training programs to build community trust and involve the community in those training programs. Another Twitter message that we have, that's a great idea. We need to change police culture, and we need to do more training on cross-cultural communication.
Thank you, and I'll turn it back over to the co-chairs.
Well, thank you so much, Ron, and thanks to our audience members who've contributed today, as well as those who have been watching around the country who've sent in comments via email and Twitter.